Welcome to Black Man's Corner. Today's topic, tripping over tipping. I'm Joey, your keeping it real guide towards a different, if not heightened, perspective on events and occurrences, both national and global, social, political, and historical. So let's do this. Have you ever thought, he didn't give enough of a tip? Am I with a cheapskate? Well, I'm not sure how well he skates, but he does sound cheap. If you have had that thought, build on it. Ask his excessively penny-pinching ass, are you cheap? Unless, of course, you are afraid of him. If that's the situation, tripping over tipping probably isn't your biggest concern. Have you ever thought, she tipped her way too much? Bitch must think she's rich. Wow. Now, if you've had that thought, you were definitely tripping over tipping. Literally. After all, why call her such a mean-spirited term when she may have only been trying to enrich another person's day, with an emphasis on rich? Supposedly, TIPS, T-I-P-S, is an acronym meaning to ensure prompt service. I guess it also means you ain't getting jack from Jill unless you are on top of your game. Who traditionally receives tips? Service providers like rideshare and delivery drivers, hotel service like doormen, bellhops, and room attendants, restaurant servers, bartenders, hairdressers, and barbers. Please notice this list didn't include police officers and judges. Trying to tip them is called a bribe and would make you a criminal and an idiot. Have you ever wondered, how much should I tip them? Well, 15% is the agreed upon industry standard and expectation. Whether they are excellent or subpar when it comes to tipping, you can let your conscience be your guide. Who am I to call you too generous or extravagant, or a tight-fisted mofo, a selfish ass, or thrifty? And I would never call anyone niggardly for obvious reasons. Though, I'm a proponent of not tipping someone who provided service as if they could care less if they received a tip. In that case, my tip to you is this. And the old excuse, I can't afford to tip, is weak. Don't get that haircut until you can afford to tip. Carry your own bags to the room and or clean it yourself. Sleep in your car if you can't afford to leave the room attendant a gratuity. Walk instead of taking that cab or rideshare. Take your ass to a fast food spot or have water instead of that sugary beverage, pretentious beverage, or self-indulgent beverage. At least be smart enough to not offend the person who could accidentally spill some dirt, if not their saliva, into your food the next time you come in and are remembered. Why are we always tripping over tipping? Which it pains me to have to point out is double entendre. For the slang impaired, it means having a problem with how much someone tips. Over tipping, get it? Tipping too much? If you still don't understand the slang, go to Urban Dictionary with the one cool friend you may have and have them break it down for you. I need to move on. Tripping over tipping could also mean having a problem getting on the same page with a friend, a lover, a family member, when we somehow never seem to agree on some consistent criteria to financially reward someone. And verbal tips like, don't spit in the wind, don't tug on Superman's cape. They don't pay the bills. So keep your failed attempts at wit to yourself. Failed witty often comes off quite shitty. At any rate, the title of this video may also have you concerned about some selfish-ass person in your crew who is upset with you because you overtipped your server or driver. Understand, it ain't necessarily solely their fault that they don't tip. They just may lack the sophistication to know one of the most universal social graces existing within most first world countries. not to imply they're exhibiting prehistoric characteristics, because some cultures and countries don't, but they probably have also never dined in Paris. Instead, when they last left a restaurant or rideshare without tipping, they were also probably clueless about the statements they made about themselves by not. You have seen the conversation on tipping in the opening scene in Quentin Tarantino's first film, Reservoir Dogs, right? If not, what's up with that? In it, the character Mr. Pink says, I don't tip because society says I gotta. I tip when somebody deserves a tip. When somebody really puts forth an effort, they deserve a little something extra. But this tipping automatically, that shit's for the birds. As far as I'm concerned, they're just doing their job. So, what type of tipper are you? A non-tipper is still a tipper, just like inaction is still a type of action. Oh, and this video isn't trying to disparage people who can't afford to tip. When times get hard and you need that extra dollar or two, I get it. Of course, save your money. Though, did you really need those fries you ordered or that second drink? And that dollar you left as a tip for a $30 meal, that was an insult. Most servers would prefer to instead give your broke ass a dollar than receive only one from you. Any memo on tipping would reveal that a $20 meal or ride warrants more than a dollar tip. While it may have made you feel good about yourself, that's only because you either didn't get the memo or were too trifling to read it. As I mentioned earlier, 15% is the standard rate to tip for adequate service. Tipping 10% is a statement that you were not quite satisfied. As well, a $5 tip for an $80 dinner is under tipping by $7. For those of you mathematically impaired, 15% of $80 is $12. Okay, so at the risk of racializing this video, black people who live or are working in predominantly white enclaves who don't tip other black servers, room attendants, or drivers need their Negro cards revoked when the service was good. Why? Because both before and after their cheap asses leave, along will come a white person who tips generously, perhaps because they get it, are trying to be an ally, or perhaps overcompensating because of their angst about slavery or black lives. Well, not all white people, of course. Certainly not you. Best-selling author of The New Jim Crow, Michelle Alexander, who worked her way through college as a server, like many of us, says amongst many other provocative things that tipping is a legacy of slavery. You can find her must-read article on the internet. Like viewing the opening scene to Reservoir Dogs, it is well worth experiencing. You probably tip well, though, or at least you think you do. I'm afraid to admit that far too many people didn't get that memo on tipping. No problem. Just show them this video. Afterwards, if they still don't tip well, you'll know for sure that they're just unflatteringly frugal, or in other words, cheap AF. Oh, and since I'm not Asian, Indigenous, Native American, Latinx, or white, I'm not going to speculate on the reasons other races or ethnicities don't tip well. I'll leave that concern for all within those communities to consider. And lastly, oftentimes the best tip drunk-ass college students can give is not vomiting in your vehicle. Just saying. As always, thank you for visiting Black Man's Corner. Hope you liked the video. If so, like the video. More so, subscribe to us. And as always, power to the people.